Hello, it's Jim from RV4x40.com. Welcome to the channel today. We're going to talk a little bit about some things that I find useful. Of course, we travel in the beast behind us, which is a combination of a vehicle as well as our home. And so it has challenges both as a motor vehicle requiring certain things there, as well as it's a house we live in. And that house is subject to a great deal of rattle and roll as we go down the roads. Particularly some of the roads in the U.S. have deteriorated rather badly. But be that as it may, so I carry a lot of stuff underneath this particular RV that someone who's using it as a vacation trip or a weekend getaway and so forth might not need to have all that stuff with you. So there are a few things that I have found over the last 4 years of being full-time that not necessarily found in every RV, but I have found them to be useful for me in doing various projects around the RV or just in the everyday use of it. So no particular order in these in terms of importance, just more as I can get to them to film them and put them into this video. So stay tuned and we'll give you some information that you might find useful in the future. Because of the nature of living full-time in the RV, storage is really at a premium. No matter how big the RV is, you can always run out of room to store things. And so what I have found, and we use them both inside in some of the cabinets inside, and that I use them extensively on the 2 rollout trays we have underneath, and that's these stacking bins. These happen to be from a company called Sterilite, and this particular series is found at Walmart pretty much across the country, so I've got them at different times and different things. But what's neat about them is the size of them. As you can see here, there are different sizes involved in what I'm doing, and it may be hard to see in the video, but on the top there are these square posts, and on the bottom there's a larger rectangular cutout. And so what happens is various sizes, these are all coordinated, and so you can take 2 of these and stack them, and they lock together, not tightly, but given a little bit of weight, they've held up pretty good in terms of staying in place as we've driven down some pretty rough roads going to Alaska and back. But different sizes, you can see some smaller ones, and then they come in different depths. So here's a bigger one and a smaller one that sits on top of it. This will stack on top of that if that's appropriate, and you can put this down there, and so now you have a bigger one on the bottom that forms a foundation. And what I have in these isn't particularly important. This is a lot of tools. There's some other things in these other bins that I have. I do label them. See that here's a label. I have a little brother label maker which I use extensively, and I put labels on them relatively permanently because stuff doesn't change around too much once you get it organized, and the labels are easy to change if you want to do that. But from a storage standpoint, I find these things to be extremely useful to maximize the space without having just all in one big jumble. And you may have to dig down through 2 or 3 of these to get to the one on the bottom, but once you figure out where stuff is and you can get to it, and that is a problem at times. I've forgotten which bin it's in, and so I sometimes have to go through more than one to get there, but I'm pretty good by now at remembering which bin and which tray and which side things are in. So I strongly endorse these, not necessarily this brand, but this concept is a great way to keep stuff organized, and so you can get to it when you need it. There are times when you might need to be working on a compartment and it's too high to sit down on the ground and too low to stand up and bend over all the time, and so you might need something to sit on. I find this camp stool that I've had for quite a while. In fact, replaced it once over the years, and it's a very convenient height, easy to get into and out of, and so it helps a lot when you try to sit somewhere and work on something. You can take a look at the stool when I get up. Sometimes that stool might not just be at the right height to be able to get to the right spot where you want to work on something, so I found a cushion like this is really good. It's a kneeling pad, and happens to be marked with yellow, but that's not terribly important. So when the stool is too tall or isn't the right place, you just need to be in a different position, a kneeling pad like this works wonderful. It protects your knees. It's something you can stay on for quite a while, and of course you don't have to deal with the rocks that are going to be hard on your knees no matter what you do. So that's another option for how you get down and work on something outside of the RV. And I'm really not laying down on the job, although I'm laying down at the moment, but there are times when you need to get underneath this beast or do something where you're flat on your back, and gravel that like this site is can be very, very hard on you. And so a roll-up bamboo mat I find to be very, very useful. It kind of cushions the rocks. Roll it up and stick it in the corner when you're not using it, so it's out of the way. While we're in this bin, and just because they happen to be stored here, but jack pads are something that you have to think about. We have hydraulic jacks on our RV, but at times we've had campgrounds that were too out of level and the jacks didn't have enough range, or whatever reason. If it's really soft material, you might want to put a jack pad under it to spread the weight around a little bit. And these are a pair actually of these kind of plasticky hard rubber material. They do have holes drilled all the way through them, one of which is used for the rope, so you can use that to get them in and out. Use a metal rod and grab the end of it and pull them back out. They also have a ridge around the top and a groove on the bottom. They're probably hard to see in the video, but these will interlock to a certain extent to keep them from moving, so you can stack them more than one deep. So I found these to be very, very useful. I use them more if I need to adjust the height than I do to put them under the pads. The pads normally are fine on whatever material we have. If you're on some soft materials, you might have to use them just to distribute the weight a little bit more, but they're not that much bigger than the metal pad. They are a little bit pliable. So I've got 4 of those, so that's what I use for putting under the jack stands when I'm going to use those, and I have a need for something like that under them. I do not use them all the time. Another thing I have done to make it a little bit easier hooking up water to the RV, first of all, I use a Y here. This is the only connection I screw on. Everything else has these, and I think they're Gilmore, but anyway, they are a brass quick disconnect fitting. I encourage you to stay away from the plastic ones and the really cheap ones. The last ones I found in Home Depot were brass plated aluminum. They look like they're brass, but they're actually aluminum. They corrode very, very easily. But these are quick disconnects, and so I don't have to mess around with screwing everything together. The pressure regulator is one like this. It has the fittings on the end of it, and I use an adjustable one with the pressure gauge, so I can tell if for sure if I even need it. Some campgrounds you don't want to use it because it does drop your pressure some, but these just snap together, so that's connected. And then here's the water connection into the RV, so it goes together very, very easily. And turn the water on, and what I'm seeing here is about 35 pounds of pressure after the regulator. It's set to about 60 pounds, which is as high as I want to run it. But in this particular case, in this campground, I don't need that. I could stop and take that back out, or I can leave it in there. You do lose a little bit of pressure because the regulator is in there, but not much. So we just leave it in there. But all of those quick disconnects I find to be very, very useful and very helpful. My biggest problem has been I have left behind that Y fitting in more than one occasion with the fittings that go on it. So I've learned over the years to make sure I get that away from everything as I disconnect. Another thing that I like, and there's as many different kinds of sewer hoses as there are RVs, I think, but this one is a Rhino, and what I like about it is it's kind of a corrugated material, and it actually has a little bit of a snap pop action. I'm not sure if you can tell about that, and it won't go very far. One of the things about this for storage is with the caps on it on either end, it's fairly airtight, and so the air pressure keeps you from getting this thing very large. But you can see here it's very flexible. These things snap into place as you expand it, and so you can get it to the length you want. I have 2 of them in case I need a longer hose or a shorter hose, but they can be as short as this or as long as I think these are 10 feet. I'm not sure about that even. But with the end caps, they store very easily. You don't have to worry about them flying around like the old-fashioned slinkies do that don't have any way to retain them. So I find this to be a very easy way to do it. I also keep these happen to be nitrile gloves rather than latex, but I keep rubber gloves in the wet bay to get to them. I use it for this stuff, and I previously pretty much always used these gloves fueling diesel, because diesel pumps and truck stops tend to be somewhat oily and greasy and that kind of stuff. And since COVID-19, we've also kept these in the car, and we use them when we fuel the car as well, just because that's something which is fairly hard to sanitize. And one recent addition to our outside materials and little things that we use to help out is this sewer saddlebag. It's shipped to you without any kind of weight in it. I bought a bag of rock and filled it with a fairly coarse gravel, and then put most of that gravel in the driveway because it doesn't take much to fill the bag up. It's heavy enough to keep the sewer from blowing out. We are in Indiana, and we did have a windstorm a few weeks ago, and it actually, in spite of having the thing somewhat secured into the sewer drain, it did pull it out, and the sewer hose was disconnected. So fortunately I found that and put it back in, and I got one of these to add some weight to it and keep it from happening. And so that's the last of the topics I was going to cover with you today. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you found something useful as you look at your RVing life, and some of these little gadgets might be helpful to you. And if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel. And if you have a favorite little gimmick or little item that you use around the RV to help you out, post that in the comments down below, and we'll share that with everyone else who's watching the channel. In the meantime, stay safe in COVID-19, and join us as we travel the highways and byways of America as time permits and as the pandemic permits. In the meantime, we'll see you next week.